Usually, back in England, pilots and navigators take pot luck who they fly with. In Canada, for Maple Flag, the squadron commander has deliberately paired people up.
History has shown that something like 85% of the killing is only ever done by 15% of the crews. So good crews are really worth having. If you do it the other way and you take a good pilot and put him, say, with a weaker navigator to broaden the experience base, what you tend to do is you reduce overall the level of performance. It's much better to have a few really good crews in there for the other guys to learn from and look up to and to want to emulate. But that said, of course, you've also got to take personalities into account.
We're below ACT. We're below what? Below ACT there. We have to come in and go. Yeah, about it's 180 degrees. Yeah, we have. We don't have to. It's their limitation of ours.
It can make a hell of a difference. If you fly with a guy you get on well with, it's that sort of relationship where after you've flown for some fairly considerable period of time, really, but you know what the other guy does, he thinks, how he thinks, what he wants doing, things like that.
You can fly the aircraft, no problem, but the navigator has to do some aspects of the operational side of the flying. If he doesn't do it well, or you don't work as well as a team, rather than having the sum of two parts, you have less than half of each individual person. The counter is when you get a pilot and navigator who work very well together, you get 3 times the ability of just a pilot and just a navigator.
The advantage of working with one guy in particular all the time is that you don't generally have to ask the other guy for any particular information because you know what the other guy's thinking and you've done it so many times before. And so that's why it tends to work a bit quicker.
Yeah, I think you can probably reach the same standard with somebody you don't know so well, but you have to work harder at it in the air. And as Stumpy says, rather than just doing something, you have to ask the other guy to do it.
You seem to get on very well, fly well together, work well together, play well together as well. And so it's just a sort of situation that's stuck, really.
Others on the exercise have also found ideal partners.
It's through choice, basically, and I go for tall men. Basically what it is that when we fly together, we tend to talk about things and interact quite a lot. And by doing that, and by interacting and chatting it through, we tend to make less mistakes.
At supersonic speeds as low as 250 feet above the ground, there is little room for second thoughts. Trust is the byword. Trust in the man up front.
When you fly with a guy for the first time, you know, you don't know how he is, and it's exactly the same with him. He doesn't know how you are. And it's a mutual confidence thing. There are some people I've flown with who I've had 100% trust in, and others who you think, oh, you better keep an eye on what's going on around here, you know.
You'll fly with someone and you'll think, well, yeah, I don't mind flying with him in peacetime, but in wartime there are certain pilots that I can think of, not on the squadron now, but certainly I've been through training with, and I think, yeah, I don't really fancy flying with him. But it's just the same as any other job, really. You know, certain people you'd like to work with and some people you wouldn't want to work with.
The Canadian War Games will soon get underway.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Maple Flag.
Every pilot and navigator involved has been ordered to attend the exercise safety brief to hear about the real dangers of simulated combat.
Okay, we're going to run through a couple of slides or a couple of videos here quickly. The first one is a near miss. You keep your eye, this is the second section going in, keep your eye right in here. This will tend to water your eyes. 2 different sections on the same target being decompressed.
Yeah, they're always most amusing. I've seen several before, some worse than that, and they always give you a little bit of a twinge.
This is quite a ride.
Still out of control. Throttles idle. 9,000.
Altitude. Warning.
6,200 feet when it finally starts pulling up.
Coming out, 5,000.
Most pilots who've got a reasonable amount of experience will have had some form of close shave. Maybe not as dramatic as those, but there are times when the adrenaline flows freely in all directions, and images like that bring the point home. You don't actually have to experience it to learn from it. Whenever you have 70 aeroplanes in the sky, albeit 4,500 square miles or whatever, the big sky theory doesn't really work in practice. It's a risky operating environment, but if everybody's professional, then there shouldn't be a problem.
Every war game needs a believable story. The fighting in what was Yugoslavia has prompted the planners of this, the 28th Maple Flag, to create a fictional Bosnian war scenario.
What we've done here is we've divided up Western Canada according to Maple Flag. We've invented some countries here to be a more realistic scenario. We've put the bad guys on the west and we've called them Torgenia. We put the good guys on the east and we've called them Livonia. And just to fill in the space, we've put some neutral countries in. To the north is the country of Kardas, and to the south, you can just barely see it there, is the country of Bakuna. We've made a war to fight over this piece of territory. And in the middle of this piece of territory, conveniently, is the Cold Lake Air Weapons Range. And that's what the whole idea of Maple Flag is about, is the fight over that piece of territory.
We cater the exercise to the junior combat ready aircrew, brand new guy in the squadron. And we try and give him his first 10 simulated missions he's had before he went to combat to bring his survivability rate up. It's just like in the Second World War, and if you go back way to the First World War, when we started having aircraft in military operations, the combat losses were horrendous during the first couple of missions. And if you get through those first 5 or 6 or even 10 missions, your chances of surviving became significantly higher. In Vietnam, up to 90% of their losses were during those first 10 missions. Once they ran Maple Flag, they found their combat losses went down substantially.
Okay. There we go. Coming off now.
The war game plan is not what the men from the RAF are used to. They and their Tornadoes are to play the enemy, Red Air, the bad guys.
What we've done is we've made the Red Air an air-to-air player. So the Tornadoes are going to be fighting an air-to-air battle against things like Eagles, Phantoms, F-18s, and what have you.
This is the first time we've had the Brits here in an air-to-air role. They're actually going to be playing with the Tornado F-3s, and that's what they're going to be simulating. The bad guys can have good guy aircraft these days. You just don't know who you're going to be fighting at any given time.
Well, it's going to be very difficult because the opposition, everything is pretty much in their favour to a degree. They have slightly more advanced aircraft, and they certainly outnumber us by about 3 to 1. So that is a challenge just in itself. A different operating environment, hazards of flying at low altitude against such terrain, they all add to the pressures in the cockpit. Plus there's the need to do well.
In temporary headquarters within feet of where the aircraft are parked, the 12 pilots and navigators of A-Flight gather for their first Maple Flag briefing.
It's up there. If you want any questions on it, ask right at the end. On the main radio, I expect to hear committing. I expect to hear leaders of elements call targeting, which group they're going for. If you get a kill, when you get a kill, make sure you call it. Remember,
Flight Lieutenant Paul Vickery, a navigator, has been chosen as the mission leader. He is being assessed for leadership qualities.
But that's not a priority. That's not what we're there to try and kill.
Your aim is to dress to survive an ejection, be it into a lake, onto the ground, into the sea. It may mean you're slightly uncomfortable in the cockpit, but it's a choice. There's a very, very slim chance you're going to eject. But on the one day it happens to you, you want to be wearing the right kit because, as you know, your family would feel pretty bad if you died from hypothermia because you hadn't worn the right equipment. Basic thermals and things for body warmth. Your flying suit obviously is a protective layer. You then have your G pants, which are for G protection, because once you get above 2G, they start to inflate, and that puts pressure on the leg, stops the blood rushing away from your head. It keeps the blood in the top half of the body, helps it stay there, so that you don't have the classic old blackout. And they've lost a few F-16s and things from that, where they've gone to maximum G, and the guys had G loss of consciousness and just crashed into the ground. And then your life jacket. Obviously, the life jacket itself is for buoyancy if you end up in the water. It's also, on an ejection, you'll inflate it anyway, because it'll give you some protection if you were going into trees or whatever, because you've got a helmet on, obviously, for head protection, but this stole around your neck will hopefully stop you damaging the upper neck and what have you.
Maple Flag is getting off to a dismal beginning. A fog bank has suddenly rolled in. The weathermen have failed to predict it. Flying conditions will be difficult. Even in war, the weather is a decisive factor.
Maple Flag launch this morning is cancelled. Say again, Maple Flag launch this morning is cancelled. Inform Lake Erie Davis information, Alpha.
Obviously, one flight was cancelled. Get out and see inside.
Even as the cancellation is called, the fog starts to lift. Too late.
Frustrated. You know, you're up early, get a good plan together, and just throw it away. That's life. It's not safe to go. They've made their judgment decision, so we've got to go by it. The weather in the area is fine for the exercise, but bringing 80+ aircraft back to one airfield and in this fog is just not a good idea. I think everybody will be pretty pissed off, really. Put a lot of work into it, so that's life.
Near misses and engine failure next as we continue our Saturday stack.
But the elements strike back.